Thank you for watching Safe Haven Radio. Today, we're going to explore a deeply personal yet scientifically understood topic, breaking free from the invisible chains of controlling parents and healing the psychological wounds they leave behind. Many of you watching may still hear that critical voice in your head, questioning every decision you make. Perhaps you struggle with setting boundaries, feeling overwhelming guilt when you prioritize your own needs, or find yourself constantly seeking approval from others. I want you to know that these experiences are not only valid but also completely understandable from a neurological perspective. What we're discussing today isn't about blaming parents or dwelling in the past. Instead, we're going to explore how the latest neuroscience research reveals both the impact of controlling parenting on our brains and, more importantly, the incredible capacity we have to heal and rewire these patterns at any age. Whether you're in your 20s just beginning to recognize these patterns or in your 60s still struggling with the same internal critic, the science shows us that change is possible. Let's begin by acknowledging something important. If you experienced controlling parenting, you likely developed certain coping mechanisms that helped you survive. These weren't character flaws, they were adaptive responses to a challenging environment. The hypervigilance, the people-pleasing, the difficulty trusting your own judgment, these were all ways your young brain tried to protect you. Understanding this from a scientific perspective can be the first step towards self-compassion and healing. It's also crucial to recognize that seeking professional support for these experiences is not a sign of weakness but rather an act of courage and self-care. While we'll explore evidence-based techniques you can practice on your own, trauma-informed therapy can provide invaluable support on this journey. Remember, you deserve to heal at your own pace, in your own way. Now, let's dive into what science tells us about how controlling parenting affects the developing brain. The world's largest brain study on childhood trauma, published just this year in 2024, analyzed data from 14 different studies involving over 580 children. This groundbreaking research discovered that children exposed to controlling parenting show marked differences in two crucial brain networks, the default mode network and the central executive network. The default mode network is involved in how we sense our body, our sense of self, and our internal reflections. When this network is disrupted by controlling parenting, it can lead to difficulties with self-awareness and identity formation. Meanwhile, the central executive network, which helps us with planning and problem-solving, becomes hyperactive in children with controlling parents. This hyperactivity means that these children, and later adults, tend to ruminate excessively, constantly replaying criticisms and negative experiences in their minds. Research from multiple universities in 2023 and 2024, involving over 665 adolescents, revealed something even more striking. Children experiencing high levels of parental psychological control are 6 times more likely to develop internalizing disorders like anxiety and depression, and nearly 5 times more likely to develop externalizing disorders like aggression or substance abuse. These aren't just behavioral issues, they represent fundamental changes in how the brain processes emotions and stress. But here's where the science becomes truly hopeful. The same research that shows us how trauma affects the brain also demonstrates something remarkable: neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new neural connections throughout our entire lives. A research institution's 2024 studies on neuroplasticity revealed that targeted interventions can literally rewire trauma-affected brain areas. Clinical studies have shown that specific therapeutic approaches can strengthen the neural connections between the amygdala, our fear center, and the prefrontal cortex, our rational thinking center, leading to improvement rates of 77% in emotional regulation within just 12 weeks. Another fascinating discovery comes from research on psychotherapy combined with neurofeedback training. This combination has been shown to facilitate the upregulation of prefrontal cortex activity, essentially strengthening the part of your brain responsible for executive function and emotional regulation. Participants in these studies showed a 65% decrease in depression symptoms in controlled trials. This isn't just feeling better temporarily, it's actually changing the structure and function of your brain. Now, let's explore the practical methods that research has shown to be most effective in healing from controlling parenting. These aren't quick fixes, but rather evidence-based practices that, with consistency, can create lasting neural changes. First, let's talk about the neuroplastic rewiring protocol. Research shows that just 10 minutes of daily mindfulness meditation focusing on body sensations can increase gray matter density in the hippocampus within 8 weeks. The hippocampus is crucial for memory and emotional regulation, areas often impacted by controlling parenting. The key is to practice this immediately upon waking when neuroplasticity is at its highest. Start by sitting comfortably, closing your eyes, and simply noticing the sensations in your body without judgment. Notice the feeling of your breath, the weight of your body in the chair, any tension or relaxation. This isn't about achieving a particular state, it's about reconnecting with your body in a safe, controlled way. Next, let's discuss the boundary setting framework that research has validated. Many adult children of controlling parents struggle immensely with boundaries, often feeling overwhelming guilt when they try to set limits. Studies have shown that using what researchers call the broken record technique can reduce these guilt responses by 58% after 30 days of consistent practice. Here's how it works. When you need to set a boundary, state it clearly and calmly. Then repeat the exact same statement up to 3 times without justifying or explaining yourself. For example, I need to think about that and get back to you. If pressed, simply repeat, as I said, I need to think about that and get back to you. This technique works because it doesn't give the controlling person anything to argue against or manipulate. The emotional regulation reset technique is particularly powerful when you're triggered by memories or current interactions that echo past controlling behaviors. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique has been shown through brain imaging studies to immediately reduce amygdala activation by 40%. When you feel triggered, identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This rapidly shifts your brain from the emotional fear response back to the present moment, engaging your prefrontal cortex and calming the fight or flight response. Self-validation practice is another crucial component of healing. Research indicates that writing 3 self-affirming statements each morning based on your values, not your achievements, can rebuild the self-worth neural pathways that were disrupted by psychological control. This might feel uncomfortable or even silly at first. That's actually your brain's old programming resisting the change. Examples might include, I value kindness and showed that today, or, my feelings are valid and important, or, I am learning to trust my own judgment. The key is consistency. Studies show measurable improvements in self-worth neural pathways after 6 weeks of daily practice. For those ready to engage in therapeutic intervention, research strongly supports EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy as the most effective approaches for rewiring trauma patterns from controlling parenting. Clinical trials show that these therapies don't just help you cope better, they actually create structural changes in the brain. EMDR, in particular, has been shown to strengthen the neural connections between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, essentially building a stronger bridge between your emotional and rational brain centers. If you choose to pursue therapy, commit to weekly sessions for at least 3 months to allow for optimal neuroplastic changes. It's important to understand that healing from controlling parenting isn't linear. You might have days where you feel like you're back at square one, hearing that critical voice louder than ever. This doesn't mean you're failing, it's actually a normal part of the rewiring process. Your brain has spent years, perhaps decades, operating with certain patterns. When you start to change these patterns, there can be what neuroscientists call an extinction burst, a temporary increase in the old behavior or thought pattern before it diminishes. Understanding this can help you persist through the challenging moments. Let me share something about the role of self-compassion in this healing journey. Research from multiple studies has shown that self-compassion practices can actually increase the production of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, while decreasing cortisol, the stress hormone. This neurochemical shift creates an internal environment more conducive to healing and growth. When you catch yourself being self-critical, using the same harsh voice your controlling parent used, pause and ask yourself, what would I say to a dear friend experiencing this? Then offer those same words of kindness to yourself. To summarize what we've discussed today. First, controlling parents physically rewire children's brain networks, affecting the default mode and central executive networks. Second, neuroplasticity allows complete healing at any age through targeted interventions. Third, daily mindfulness meditation rebuilds hippocampus gray matter density within 8 weeks. Fourth, the boundary repetition technique reduces guilt responses by 58%. Fifth, EMDR therapy strengthens emotion regulation neural connections between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Sixth, self-validation practice rebuilds the disrupted neural pathways affecting self-worth. Your brain was shaped by controlling parenting, but it can absolutely be reshaped through these science-based interventions starting today. The latest research proves that consistent practice of these evidence-based techniques creates measurable neural changes within weeks. You have the power to rewrite your neural programming and break free from the invisible chains of psychological control. Remember, this isn't about perfection or rushing the process. Healing happens in small, consistent steps. Some days will be harder than others, and that's completely normal and expected. Please know that seeking support, whether through therapy, support groups, or trusted friends, is a sign of strength, not weakness. You deserve to live free from the critical voice that was implanted in your mind. You deserve to make decisions based on your own values and desires, not from fear of disapproval. You deserve to have relationships where boundaries are respected and your autonomy is valued. If today's content provided any support or insight, please hit the like button. It helps others who might be struggling find this information. Subscribe to Safe Haven Radio to continue learning about mental health and healing together. Remember, every small step you take toward healing matters. You are not alone in this journey. May your hearts feel a little lighter, and may you find the peace and freedom you deserve. Thank you for listening to Safe Haven Radio.